Good evening, guys. I was thinking maybe I could read one great chapter from the book, You Can, You Will, before sleeping, since our brain needs positive thoughts while going to rest. Let's do what our body and mind need most. Listen to lively words. Chapter 3, Expect Good Things. Our expectations set the limits for our lives. If you expect too little, you are going to receive a little. If you don't anticipate things to get better, then they won't. But if you expect more favor, more good breaks, a promotion, and an increase, then you see new levels of favor and success. Every morning when you wake up, you should declare, something good is going to happen to me today. You have to set the tone at the beginning of each day. Then all through the day you should have this attitude of expectancy. Like a little child waiting to open a gift, you should be on the lookout thinking, I can't wait to see what's going to happen. Not passive, but actively expecting. Too many people drag out thinking, nothing good ever happens to me. Instead, start looking for good breaks. Expect to be at the right place at the right time. Expect your dreams to come to pass. Expect to be a winner. Don't walk into a room anticipating people do not like you. Don't go to the store believing that you won't find what you need. Don't interview for a job assuming not to get it. Your expectation is your faith at work. When you expect good breaks, expect people to like you, or expect to have a great year, then you are releasing your faith. That's what allows good things to happen. But your expectations work in both directions. If you get up in the morning and expect it to be a lousy day, and expect no breaks, and expect people to be unfriendly, then you draw that in. Your faith is working. The problem is you are using it in the wrong direction. Upgrade your expectations. A young person told me he was concerned about taking his final exams. He had studied and prepared, but he was very worried because every time he took an important test, he stressed out and couldn't remember why he had studied. He always ended up doing poorly. Joe, would you pray for me? Because I know it's going to happen again, he said. He was already expecting to fail. I shared with him this principle and told him he was anticipating the wrong things. I said, you've got to change your expectations. All through the day, say to yourself, I'm going to do great on this test. I'm going to remember everything that I've studied. I'm going to stay calm and in peace. He came back a few weeks later and said that was the best he had ever done on one of his exams. Let me ask you, what are you expecting? Big things, little things, or nothing at all? It's easy to anticipate the worst, but if you switch over into faith and expect the best, to excel, to accomplish your dreams, then you draw in blessings and favors. Some people have had a negative mindset so long they don't realize they are doing it. It's just natural to them. They assume the worst and they usually get it. They expect people to be unfriendly and people usually are. I know a lady who has been through a lot of negative things in her life, and it was like she was on an autopilot. She expected people to hurt her, and they usually did. She expected people to be dishonest, and they usually were. She expected to get laid off from her job, and eventually she did. Her expectations were drawing in all the negativity. One day she learned this principle and she started anticipating different things. She waited for the best instead of the worst. She expected to get good breaks. She expected people to like her. Today is totally turned around. She's living a victorious life. You may have had disappointments and unfair situations, but don't make the mistake of living a negative frame of mind. Instead of expecting more of the same, start expecting it to turn around. Don't think you barely get by. Know that you excel. Don't expect to be overcome. Expect to be the overcomer. You may not always feel like it, but when you get up each day, you need to remind yourself that you are more than a conqueror. Your greatest victories are still out in front of you. The right people, the right opportunities, the right breaks are already in your future. Now go out and be excited about the day, expecting things to change in your favor. Your attitude should be, I'm expecting good breaks, to meet the right people, to see an increase in business, to get my child back on track, and for my health to improve. I'm expecting to be at the right place at the right time. Don't let negative expectations limit your life. A young man told me, I don't want to expect too much. That way, if it doesn't happen, I won't go to bed all disappointed. That's no way to live. If you're not expecting increase, promotion, or good breaks, you're not releasing your faith. Faith is what causes God to act. If you expect a break, it doesn't happen, don't go to bed disappointed. Go to bed knowing you are one day closer to seeing it come to pass. Get up the next morning and do it again. Winners develop this third undeniable quality of expecting good things. You can't be in neutral and hope to reach your full potential or have God's best. It's not enough to not expect anything bad. You have to aggressively expect good things. Are you expecting your dreams to come to pass? Do you expect this year will be better than last year? Are you expecting to live a long, healthy, blessed life? Pay attention to what you are expecting. Maybe you have a desire to get married. Don't go around thinking, I'll never meet anyone. It's been so long and I'm getting too old. Instead, expect to be at the right place at the right time. Believe that divine connections will come across your path. Believe that the right person will be attracted to you. What if I do that and nothing happens? What if you do it and something does happen? I can tell you nothing will happen if you don't believe. David said in the Psalms, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. In the past, you may have had disappointments and setbacks following you around. But you need to let go of what didn't work out. Let go of every mistake and let go of every failure. Expect goodness and mercy to follow you wherever you go. It's good to look back sometimes and just say, hey goodness, hey mercy, how are you doing back there? Some people don't realize that they are always looking for the next disaster, looking for the next failure, or looking for the next bad break. Change what you're looking for. Start looking for goodness, mercy, favor, increase, and promotion. That's what should be following you around. One definition of hope is happy anticipation of something good. If you are anticipating something good, it's going to bring you joy. It will give you enthusiasm. When you're expecting your dreams to come to pass, you go out each day with a spring in your step. But if you're not anticipating anything good, then you drag through life with no passion. I don't say this arrogantly, but I expect people to like me. Maybe I am naive, but if I am, do me a favor and leave me in my ignorance. When I go somewhere, I don't have all these walls up. I'm not defensive, insecure, intimidated, or thinking they're not going to like me. They're probably talking about me right now. I expect people to be friendly. I believe that when people turn on my television program, they can't turn me off. I think when people see my book in the stores, they will be drawn to it. I'm talking about have an attitude of expecting good things. You need to get your expector out. Maybe you haven't used it for 6 years. You need to start expecting greater things. There are new mountains to climb and new horizons to explore. Expect to rise higher. Expect to overcome every obstacle. Expect doors to open. Expect favor at work, favor at home, favor at the grocery store, and favor in your relationships. Remember the good. When you've been through hurts, disappointments, and failures, you have to guard your mind. Be careful what you allow to play in your thoughts all day. Your memory is very powerful. You can be driving in your car and remember a tender moment with your child. It may have happened 5 years ago, a hug, a kiss, or something funny they did. But when you remember the moment, a smile comes to your face. You feel the same emotions, the same warmth and joy, just as if it were happening again. On the other hand, you could be enjoying the day, everything is fine, but then you start remembering some sad event when you weren't treated right or something unfair happened. Before long, you'll be sad, discouraged, and without passion. What made you sad? Dwelling on the wrong memories. What made you happy? Dwelling on the right memories. Research has found that your mind will naturally gravitate toward the negative. One study discovered that positive and negative memories are handled by different parts of the brain. A negative memory takes up more space because there is more to process. As a result, you remember negative events more than positive events. The study said that a person will remember losing $50 more than he'll remember gaining $50. The negative effect has a greater impact, carrying more weight than the positive. I've experienced this myself. I can walk off the platform after speaking and 100 people might tell me, "Joe, that was great today. I really got something out of it." But I'll be more likely to remember just one person who says, "I didn't understand it. That didn't do anything for me." In the old days, the negative comment would be all I'd think about. I'd play it over and over in my mind. That's human nature. That's how negative memories are stored in our brain. The bad takes up more space than the good. Tune into good memories. Knowing this, you have to be proactive. When negative memories come back to the movie screen of the mind, many people pull up a chair, get some popcorn, and watch it all again. They'll say, I can't believe it, they hurt me. That was so wrong. Instead, remember this, that's not the only movie playing. There is another channel that's not playing back your defeats, your failures, or your disappointments. This channel features your victories, your accomplishments, and the things you did right. The Good Memory channel plays back the times you were promoted, you met the right person, you bought a great house, and your children were healthy and happy. Instead of staying on that negative channel, switch over to your victory channel. You now move forward into better days if you're always replaying the negative things that have happened. We've all been through loss, disappointments, and bad breaks, so those memories will come to mind most often. The good news is you have the remote control. Just because the memory comes up doesn't mean you have to dwell on it. Learn to change the channel. A couple of years after my father died, I stopped by my mother's house to pick up something. Nobody was home. As I walked through the den, I immediately began to recall the night my father died. He had a heart attack in that very room. I could see him lying on the floor. By the time I got there on the day he died, the paramedics were shocking him, trying to get his heart to restart. The whole night played out in my mind, and I could feel the same emotions. Then I did what I'm asking you to do. I said, no thanks, I'm not going there. I'm not reliving that night. I'm not feeling those same sad, depressing emotions. I chose to change the channel. I started remembering all the great times we had together, the times we laughed and had fun and traveled the world. I focused on the time we went down the Amazon River and the times my father played with our son Jonathan. There was another channel. I just had to switch to it. Do you need to start changing the channel? Are you reliving every hurt, disappointment, and bad break? As long as you are replaying the negative, you never fully heal. It's like a scab that's starting to get better, but you only get worse if you pick at it. Emotional wounds are the same way. If you're always reliving your hurts and watching them on the movie screen of your mind, talking about them and telling your friends, that's just reopening the wound. You have to change the channel. When you look back over your life, can you find one good thing that has happened? Can you remember one time where you know it was the hand of God promoting you, protecting you, and healing you? Switch over to that channel. Get your mind going in a new direction. A reporter asked me not long ago what my biggest failure has been, my biggest regret. I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I don't remember what my biggest failure was. I don't dwell on that. I'm not watching that channel. We all make mistakes. We all do things we wish we had done differently. You can learn from your mistakes, but you're not supposed to keep them in the forefront of your mind. You're supposed to remember the things you did right, the times you succeeded, the times you overcame the temptation, the times you were kind to strangers. Some people are not happy because they remember every mistake they've made since 1927. They've got a running list. Do yourself a big favor and change the channel. Quit dwelling on how you don't measure up and how you just should have been more disciplined. should have stayed in school, or should have spent more time with your children. You may have fallen down, but focus on the fact that you got back up. You're here today. You may have made a poor choice, but dwell on your good choices. You may have some weaknesses, but remember your strengths. Quit focusing on what's wrong with you and start focusing on what's right with you. You won't ever become all you were created you to be if you were against yourself. You won't ever become all you were created you to be if you are against yourself. You have to retrain your mind, be disciplined about what you dwell on. Several years ago, I was playing basketball with our son Jonathan. We'd played one-on-one for years. For the first time, he beat me, fair and square, 15-14. I gave him a high five. Then I told him he was grounded. During the game, at one point, Jonathan dribbled around me and went up for a shot. I came out of nowhere, timed it just right, and blocked his shot. I swatted the ball away and it went flying into the bushes. I felt like an ABA star. A couple days later, we went to the gym to play with some friends. Jonathan said, "Dad, tell everybody what happened the other night." I said, "Oh yeah, Jonathan went up for this shot and I must have been this high in the air and I blocked it, and it was something else." He said, "No, Dad, I meant tell them how I beat you for the first time." What's funny is I didn't remember my defeat. I remembered my victory. The first thing that came to my mind wasn't that I lost the game to him, but the fact that I did something good. It's because I've trained my mind to remember the right things. For many people, it's just the opposite. They won the game, but they remember all the mistakes they made. They never feel good about themselves. They are always focused on something they didn't do enough. It's all in how you train your mind. It depends on what channel you're watching. Don't make the mistake of remember what you should forget, whether it's your hurts, your disappointments, or your failures. Don't forget what you should remember, your victories, your successes, and the hard times you overcame. Collect the positives in your past. In the Old Testament, God commanded his people to have certain feasts and certain celebrations. One of the main reasons was so they would remember what he had done. Several times a year they would stop what they were doing so everybody could take off. They would celebrate how God brought them out of slavery and how God defeated their enemies and how he protected them. They were required to remember. In another place, it talks about how they put down what they called memorial stones. These were big stones. Today we would call them historical markers. The stones reminded them of specific victories. Every time they would go by certain stones, they would recall an event. This stone was for when we were brought out of slavery. This stone is for when our child was healed. This stone is for how God provided for our needs. Having this memorial stone helped them to keep God's deeds fresh in their memories. In the same way, you should have your own memorial stones. When you look back over your life, you should remember not when you failed, not when you went through a divorce, not when your business went down, not when you lost that loved one, not when the boss did you wrong. That's remembering what you're supposed to forget. You need to switch over to the other channel. Remember when you met the love of your life. Remember when your child was born. Remember when you got that new position. Remember when the problem suddenly turned around. Remember the peace you felt when you lost a loved one. Remember the strength you had in that difficult time. You looked dark. You didn't think you'd see another happy day again. But God turned it around and gave you joy for mourning, beauty for ashes. And today you're happy, healthy, strong. We should all have our own memorial stones. My mother recently marked the 31st anniversary of her victory over cancer. 31 years ago, the doctors gave her a few weeks to live, but another year just went by, and she's still healthy and whole. That's a memorial stone. Another one for me is December 23, when Mayor Lee Brown handed us the key to our new church building in Houston. That facility is a memorial stone. I also remember when I walked into a jewelry store and met Victoria for the first time. God answered her prayer. My prayer. I put up another memorial stone in remembrance of the fact that when my father died, I didn't know how to minister, but God gave me the grace to step up and pastor the church. That's what I'm constantly remember, good things. My question to you is, do you have any memorial stone out? What you remember will have a great impact on what kind of life you live. If you are remembering your failures, your disappointments, and your hurts, that will keep you stuck in a rut. If you just change what you're remembering, start remembering your successes, your victories, and the times you overcome, that will allow you to step into new levels of favor. You may be in tough times, facing challenges, but when you remember the right things, you won't be saying, this problem is too big, this sickness is going to be the end of me. Instead, you'll be saying, God, you did it for me once, and I know you can do it for me again. This is what David did when he was about to face a Goliath, a giant twice his size. He could have focused on how big Goliath was and how Goliath had more experience, more training, more weapons. All that would have done is discourage him. The scripture says, David remembered that he had killed a lion and a bear with his own hands. What was he doing? Remembering his victories. David could have remembered that his brothers mistreated him and his father disrespected him. There were negative things in his past, just like with all of us. But David understood this principle. Dwelling on defeats, failures, and unfair situations will keep you stuck. He chose to dwell on his victories, and he rose above that challenge and became who God created him to be. You may feel like you are up against a giant. The way you are going to stay encouraged and the way you have the faith to overcome is to do like David. Instead of dwelling on how impossible it is and how you never make it, remember your victories all through the day. Get your memorial stones out. Lord, thank you for that time when all the odds were against me, but you turned it around. God, I remember when you promoted me, vindicated me, made my wrongs right. Rehearse your victories. Remembering the good things will make you strong. Relive the joy. In 2007, a young lady named Rachel Smith won the Miss USA Beauty pageant. She's a very bright girl who has traveled the world helping underprivileged children. Later that year, she competed in the Miss Universe pageant. As she was walking out on the stage during the evening gown competition, she lost her footing on the slick floors and fell flat on her back. Millions of people around the world were watching on television. She was so embarrassed. She got up as quickly as she could and kept a smile on her face. The audience wasn't very forgiving. There were jeers and laughs and boos. It was very humiliating. In spite of that fall, Rachel made it to the top 5. She had to go up and answer a question randomly chosen from a hat. She walked out again to the same spot where she had fallen just a few minutes early. She pulled the question out of the hat with millions of people watching. The question was, if you could relive and redo any moment of your life over again, what moment would that be? She had just experienced the most embarrassing moment of her life 20 minutes earlier. How many of us would have said, I'd like to relive the moment when I fell on this stage. I'd like to do that over again. But without missing a beat, she said, if I could relive anything again, I would relive my trip to Africa working with the orphans, seeing their beautiful smiles, feeling their warm hugs. Instead of reliving a moment of embarrassment, a moment of pain, Rachel chose to replay a moment of joy where she was making a difference, where she was proud of herself. We all fall down in our lives. We all make mistakes. We all have embarrassing, unfair moments. We all make mistakes. We all have embarrassing, unfair moments. You can be sure those images will replay again and again on the movie screen of your mind. You've got to do as Rachel Smith did. Change the channel and put on your victories, put on your successes, put on your accomplishments. God performed miracle after miracle for the Israelites. He supernaturally brought them out of slavery. He sent all these plagues on their enemies. Even though the Israelites were living next door, the plagues did not affect them. When they came to a dead end at the Red Sea, with Pharaoh and his army chasing them, it might have looked like their lives were all over, but the water parted. They went through the sea on dry ground. God gave them water out of a rock, and He led them by the cloud of the day and the pillar of fire by night. But in spite of all of this, they never made it into the promised land. Psalm 78 tells why. It says, they forgot what God had done. They didn't remember the amazing miracles He had shown them and their ancestors. When you forget what you should be remembering, it can keep you out of your promised land. The Israelites became discouraged, started complaining, and asked Moses, why did you bring us out here to die in the desert? When they faced an enemy, they thought, we don't have a chance. They already had seen God's goodness in amazing ways. They had seen God do the impossible. But because they forgot about it, they were afraid, worried, and negative. It kept them from their destiny. God can do it again. Are you forgetting what God has done for you? Have you let what once was a miracle become ordinary? It doesn't excite you anymore. You need to look back over your life and remember your victories, big and small. You know if God did it for you once, He can do it for you again. You may get discouraged and think, I don't see how I will ever get out of this problem, or I'll never get out of that, or I'll never get well. But when that happens, Go back and remember the Red Seas God has parted for you. Remember the enemies He's delivered you from. Remember the battles He's fought and the restoration, the vindication, and the favor He's shown. Every one of us can look back and see the hand of God on our lives. God has opened doors that should have never opened for you, just as He did for the Israelites. He's helped you accomplish things you never could have accomplished on your own. He's brought you out of difficulties that you thought you'd never survive. He's protected, promoted, and given you opportunity. The key to staying encouraged so you can see God open new doors and turn negative situations around is to never forget what He has done. In fact, the scripture says we should tell our children and our grandchildren. We should pass down stories of the goodness of God. In the Old Testament, we read a lot about the staffs people carried around with them. They weren't just walking sticks or something to keep wild animals away. They were more significant than that. Back in those days, people were nomadic. They were always on the move. They didn't keep records with papers and computer files like we have today. Instead, they etched records of important events and dates on their walking staffs. That was their way of keeping personal records. They'd etch notations such as, on this date we defeated the Amalekites. On this date my son was born. On this date God brought us out of slavery. On this date God gave us water out of the rock. Their walking staffs provided a record of their history with God. When Moses parted the Red Sea, what did he do? He held up his staff. He was saying, God, we thank you for all you've done in the past. We remember that you've delivered us time and time again. Moses was remembering the great things God had done. When David went out to face Goliath, he didn't just take his slingshot. The scripture says he took his staff. On that staff, no doubt, he had etched, on this date I killed a lion with my bare hands. On this date I killed a bear. On this date Samuel anointed me as king. David took his staff to remind him that God had helped him in the past. I can imagine just before he went out to fight, he ran over and read it one more time. That gave him the final boost. His attitude was, God, you did it for me back then, so I know you can do it for me now. Are you facing giants today? Does your problem look too big? Do your dreams seem possible? You need to get your staff out. Instead of going around discouraged and thinking it's never going to work out, start dwelling on your victories. Start thinking about how you killed the lion and bear in your own life. Start thinking about how you killed the lion and bear in your own life. Start remembering how far God has brought you. Rehearse all the times He opened doors, gave you promotions, healed your family members, and put you in the right places with the right people. Don't forget your victories. On a regular basis, go back over your memorial stones and read the victories etched on your staff. When those negative memories come up, they come to all of us. The things that didn't work out, your hurts, your failures, and your disappointments. Many people mistakenly stay on that channel and they end up stuck in a negative rut and do not expect anything good. Remember, that's not the only channel. Get your remote control and switch over to the victory channel. Expect breakthroughs breakthroughs. Expect problems to turn around. Expect to rise to new levels you haven't seen your greatest victories. You haven't accomplished your greatest dreams. There are new mountains to climb, new horizons to explore. Don't let past disappointments steal your passion. Don't let the way somebody treats you sour you on life. God is still in control. It may not have happened in the past, but it can happen in the future. Draw a line in the sand and say, that's it, I'm done with low expectations. I'm not settling for mediocrity. I expect favor, increase, and promotion. I expect blessings to chase me down. I expect this year to be my best year so far. If you raise your level of expectancy, God will take you places you've never dreamed. He'll open doors no man can shut. He'll help you overcome obstacles that look